Senator Lathrop, minimal questions like.
You mean the seven we have left?
Oh.
You mean the 7 people we have left in correction? That's what I was looking at on TV. Girl, now I was supposed to have dinner last night. I was like,
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Redistricting Committee public hearing. My name is Lou Ann Lenahan. I'm from Elkhorn and represent Legislative District 39. I serve as chair of this committee. Today, we will hear all 8 bills at the same time. That way, if you would like to testify on more than one map, you may do so when you're up here, regardless if it's 1 or 2 or 3 maps. Our hearing today is for your public part. Our hearing today is your public part of the legislative process. This is your opportunity to express your position on the proposed legislation before us today. To better facilitate today's proceedings, I ask that you abide by the following procedures. Please turn off cell phones. The order, which I always have to make sure I do. The order of testimony is the introducer, members of the public, and closing remarks. If you will be testifying, please complete the green form and hand it to, do we have pages here today? Hand it to the page. If you have written materials you would like to distribute to the committee, please hand them to staff to distribute. We need 12 copies for all committee members and staff. When you begin to testify, please state and spell your name for the record. Please be concise. It is my request that you limit your testimony to 3 minutes. If necessary, we're going to use the light system. So you're going to have 2 minutes on green and then a minute on yellow. And then obviously we need to make sure people stay within that because we want to make sure everybody that's here gets a chance. So to be fair, we're going to be tough on the light system. If your remarks were reflected in previous testimony, or you would like your position to be known, but do not wish to testify, please sign the white form. And where is it, gentlemen? Outside the door in the back. Please speak directly into the microphone so our transcribers are able to hear your testimony clearly. I would like to introduce committee staff, and I would like them to stand as I read their names. Director of Legislative Research, Ben Thompson, who's standing in the back. His staff, Lamont Rainey and Tim Erickson. And I'm not sure. Jeff Ryman, who's in the National Guard, right? Good morning, Jeff. And committee clerk, Grant Latimer, at the end of the table. I'm just going to take a couple of minutes here to kind of shout out to the staff. This is the 17th day since the committee has actually had numbers to work on. But before we had the numbers, the staff and legislative research had to work on them for 10 days. So if my math is right, they are on their 27th day of working every day, and many of those days over 12 hours a day. They have also done an excellent job of getting everything on the website as soon as it was available, including the resolutions and the maps. I really want people to understand how hard they have had to work the last almost 4 weeks. Now I would like, starting with Senator Blood, I believe, just introduce the senators to introduce themselves.
Good morning. My name is Senator Carol Blood, and I represent Western Bellevue and Southeastern Papillion, Nebraska.
Tom Breezy, I represent District 41.
Tom Brewer, I represent District 43.
Steve Lathrop, I represent Legislative District 12, which is Ralston and parts of Southwest Omaha.
Suzanne Geist, I represent District 25, which is the east side of Lincoln and Lancaster County.
John Lowe, District 37.
Please refrain from applause or other indications of support or opposition. I'd like to remind our committee members to speak directly into the microphones for our audience. The microphones in the room, this is not true, they are for amplification here and recording purposes. Last, we are an electronic equipped committee. Information is provided electronically as well as in paper form. Therefore, you may see committee members reference information on their electronic devices. Be assured that your presence here today and your testimony are important to us and critical to our state government. One last message here for those who aren't here, even those who are here. We have another hearing tomorrow in Lincoln at 11 a.m. That will be about the bills that were introduced by other senators, not on the committee. Not on the committee. That will be at 11 o'clock tomorrow. Any letters for the record for that hearing should be submitted to the legislature by noon today. And with that, we're going to have Senator Wayne introduce his bills first this morning. So, Senator Wayne, would you like to?
Thank you. Good morning, Chairwoman Lenahan and members of the Redistricting Committee. I am Justin Wayne. I serve as the Vice Chair of this committee. I represent Legislative District 13, which is North Omaha and Northeast Douglas County. Before I start, I just want to note that I am wearing a suit today, not because we are in Omaha. It is because when I leave here, I am going straight to court after I get done testifying for my real job and then coming back here after my court hearing, and I didn't have time to change in between. So no disrespect to CD1 and CD3 who saw me in a polo shirt in most of my testimony. Second, I just want to take a time out because I know we're going to be here for a while, but I think it's important to note that today is Chairwoman Lenahan's birthday. And I just want to thank her for her service, not just on this legislature, but for the years of government, particularly serving as Chief of Staff for Senator Hagel and all the work that she's done when he was Secretary of State too. And then just being a mentor to me and a friend to me in the legislature. And it's been an honor working with you, Senator Lenahan. She still won't vote for my plan. So I'm gonna introduce both LB2 and LB4 today, and I'll spend a little time walking through kind of what we've done, and then open up to any questions from the committee members. LB2 would adopt a proposed redistricting plan for 3 congressional districts that I put forward after input from this committee and many of our colleagues. Before getting into a whole lot of details, I just want to remind the public that the legislature last session passed LR 134. And what it basically says is our guidelines for how we should try to come up with these maps. Some of the suggestions were follow county lines, which is actually part of our state constitution. Make sure districts are compact and contiguous, that they are easily identifiable to voters, preserve community interest, and preserve the core of the prior districts. So that's the process we started with. The results of the 2020 census revealed that Nebraska's population has continued to shift heavily from the west to the east, resulting in nearly a shift of 100,000 people between the 3 congressional districts. CD1 grew slightly with over 6,000 people to the ideal population. CD2 grew significantly with over 47,000 people over the ideal district population, while CD3 lost a significant with over 53,000 people under the ideal district population. Douglas County, the largest county by population in the state of Nebraska, has been wholly included in a single congressional district for as long as Nebraska has been a state. Again, Douglas County has wholly been included in a single congressional district for as long as Nebraska has been a state. When Nebraska was admitted in the state, roughly 1867, before Nebraska was admitted to 1892, the state had a single congressional district for the entire state. Starting around 1882, reappointment gave Nebraska 3 congressional districts. Douglas County was placed entirely in the 1st congressional district. Reappointment in 1892 gave Nebraska an additional district, so they were renumbered. That is when Douglas County moved again entirely to the CD2. Nebraska lost a congressional district in 1932, 1942, and again in 1962. Throughout that entire time, Douglas County remained in its entirety in the 2nd congressional district. All of Douglas County has been in the 2nd congressional district since 1892, and in the single congressional district, either at large in CD1 or CD2 for the entire time it has been a state. Obviously, under my proposal, it would not be logical or justifiable to split Douglas County, which the core has been Douglas County and CD2 for over 130 years. In fact, the fundamental question for me was where to draw the Sarpy County line, which has been a part of the congressional district for as long as I can remember. Looking back and making sure people understand, we followed the guidelines laid out in LR 134. And looking at La Vista, the Gretna area, and Bellevue, we believe that Bellevue is more like the core of Douglas County than La Vista or other parts of Gretna. I want to remind people that until 2011, the 2nd congressional district included eastern half of Sarpy County, encompassing all of the city of Bellevue, all of the city of La Vista, and roughly half of the city of Papillion. It was not until 2011 when this legislature radically changed Congressional District 2 by moving Bellevue out of Congressional District 2 and Congressional District 1. Under my proposed plan, much of the city of Bellevue would be restored to the 2nd Congressional District from Fort Cook Road to Fontenelle Forest, and in the east, it would to Highway 370 to the south. The plan would also retain much of the city of La Vista in the 2nd Congressional District east of 96th Street. As far as the other boundaries when it relates to Congressional Districts 1 and 3, my proposal would shift all of Platte and Polk counties into the 3rd district from the 3rd district to the 1st district, along with the most of Otoe County. The idea is we were trying to only split 2 counties to make sure that we are following the guidelines that were laid out by LR 134. I believe that any map that splits Douglas County is a gross violation of what we are trying to do when preserving the core and the community of interest. I often don't agree with Governor Heineman, but Governor Heineman also opposes the plan that splits Douglas County into 2. I'm certain there'll be a number of individuals here who will testify about the core of District 2 and Douglas County, and I look forward to them testifying. Now turning to LB4, which is the legislature map that was proposed by me. We heard a lot about the gross or the significant loss and heavy shift from west to east in my first testimony. To put that in perspective, 4 Western districts suffered the most population loss from the standard deviation that we are trying to achieve. LD 47, Senator Erdman's district, is 15.5% under the deviation that we are trying, underneath the ideal district. LD 42, Groney's district, lost 13.4 or is 13.4 under the ideal district population. LD 44, Senator Hughes, is 13.3% under the ideal deviation. And LD 43, Brewer's district, lost 11.7. Now I want to put that in perspective that in Douglas and Sarpy County, 39, which is Senator Lenahan's district, gained about 48%. LD 49 gained 31%, and LD 10, Senator DeBoer, gained 30%. In light of these circumstances and looking at the state as a whole, we must move one legislative district from the areas with the most population loss to the growth, where the growth is seen in Western Douglas County and Sarpy County. Now, I want the public to understand that this isn't something Justin came up with or Senator Lathrop came up with. This is actually the procedures that we have used in this body for the last 50 years. We look at the districts who have lost the most population, we compare them to the districts that have gained the most population, and we move them over accordingly. In fact, that is how we have LD 39, LD 31 in Douglas County. Just a few years ago in 2010, there was similar loss in Western Nebraska. LD 43 lost 16.54%. LD 49 lost 14.94%. LD 47 lost 13.13%. And LD 44 lost 11.43%. The legislature in 2011 did exactly what I am doing today when it moved LD 49 from Western Nebraska to Sarpy County. LD 49 did not see the most population lost, but the incumbent senator, Senator Loudon, was term limited the following year. So without disrupting the majority of the legislature, they removed that district to Western Sarpy County. That is the exact same reason I chose LD 44. Senator Hughes is term limited after this year, therefore it makes logical sense. Under my plan, LD 44 would move into an area that is largely encompassed of 2 districts that saw the highest population growth. LD 39, Western Douglas County, and LD 49, Western Sarpy County. Other changes to my map include changing some of the split districts and divided communities that were throughout Western Nebraska. The existing splits between Box Butte County Alliance and Otoe County, Nebraska City are eliminated. That is, again, going back to the guidelines that were set forth of keeping communities of interest whole and preserving communities of interest. Dixon County would be split in order to necessarily achieve the population growth for LD 17, but Wakefield and Emerson, the key 2 population points, both straddle county lines, and it would make them whole by having both of them in the same legislative district. The growth in Lancaster County was largely concentrated in LD 21, LD 25, and LD 30. Because LD 30 already need to lose population because it grew too much, LD 32 was already within the allowable limit. We had to move part of LD 24, Senator Coulterman's district, into Western Lancaster County, which creates a community of interest because many of the residents in Seward and York already commute to Lincoln for work. I won't go through the rest of some of the smaller changes. I think it's important that we note the purpose of this was to preserve the cores in both maps. The purpose of this was to preserve the community interest. And lastly, We just did exactly what this body has always done when it came to making sure we had one person, one vote. Thank you, and I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator Wayne. Other questions from the committee? Senator Breezy.
Thank you, Chair Lenahan. Thank you for your opening there, Senator Wayne. What if we had data suggesting the possibility or even the likelihood of a census undercount in rural Nebraska compared to the count in urban Nebraska?
So if there was data, one, I would like, well, thank you for the question. If there was data, one, I would like to see that data to make sure it's viable. And I think it's a very, I think it would be very, it would be unproductive for us at this point to start challenging the data from the federal government. And the reason I say that is because let's take 3 counties in western Nebraska, Arthur, McPherson, and Logan. Their population is 434 in Arthur, McPherson is 399, and Logan is 716. If 50% of those people chose not to answer the census data, we're talking about 200 people. I can find 200 people who did not answer in Omaha down the street 4 blocks from now. So if we start undermining the data, even if there's a rate of 70% in Douglas County of return, that's 30% who didn't return, and the math actually would undercut your argument because it would help urban, not necessarily rural.
But wouldn't it be fair to say that if there is a systemic undercount detected in rural Nebraska, the Equal Protection Clause would be implicated?
It would be implicated, but there would be that same undercount. Historically, particularly in East Omaha, there's always been an undercount. And so I would tell you that my district has an undercount, and because my district is a partial county, I don't think the numbers work in the favor of rural Nebraska. 30% undercount in Douglas County is still of a lot more people than 50% in most of the counties in western Nebraska.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Breezy. Other questions from the committee? Senator
Brewer.
Brewer. Thank you.
We barely know each other.
Yeah.
Senator Wayne, I'm torn because there's things about your maps I like, and I think you put a lot of wisdom in some of the shaping of your districts. Again, I'm just going to address mine, and part of this goes back to why we're kind of struggling with the reality of the sheer size that we're going to have to be forcing these districts to become. And for the sake of everyone here that hasn't heard some of the discussion from previous days, I need you to visualize for a second the size of my district. If we started right here and we drove all the way to North Platte, then we drove to the Kansas border, that chunk of Nebraska is my district. So to manage it, roads, bridges, schools, all the issues with livestock, crops, just imagine how difficult that's going to be. And what we're going to do here is we're going to expand that and make it bigger yet. So your challenge is your counterparts who may have a few dozen blocks of either Lincoln or Omaha, the city of Omaha, the city of Lincoln are going to be the ones who take care of those needs. Your responsibilities are probably going to come down to a much smaller package. And I think we will reach a point where you can make a district so big it is unmanageable. And the people of that district are no longer representative because it's physically impossible. Now, part of that would be staffing to be able to answer the phone, but it's also the ability to go to those distant places, meet with people. When you have to leave on a Friday, you're going to go a 500-mile one-way drive, meet with a few folks on Saturday, and then Sunday start the 500-mile drive back. So as we look at this, just keep in mind that there will be a point we have to make some hard decisions about whether it's even realistic with the system we have right now to make these districts so massive. I guess my question is, do you kind of see where I'm coming from with this?
Thank you for the question.
Please, if you're in the room, respect that there's a hearing going on.
So One, I do think it's important, and I hope when the public listens to this, that every time there's an outburst, it delays people and maybe not a person getting a chance to speak. We have to make sure we don't do that. Two, I've traveled this state a lot with Senator Brewer, and I understand his challenges. So I would, one, suggest immediately next session, we look at staffing issues for those who are representing bigger areas, to maybe you have additional staff to help be your surrogate in the community. Two, as you know, last session, I passed the Inland Port Bill that was for Western Nebraska. We helped fund rural workforce development in Western Nebraska. We also helped fund, or I co-sponsored spur line projects for Western Nebraska. The key to Western Nebraska is we have to develop growth. It's no secret that I believe from Ogallala to Fort Robinson to Ponca, there should be a huge investment by the state to grow that area. I think that is one of the best tourist areas we could have, and tourists being our third largest economy, we should invest. There is no reason that in the state of Nebraska, we do not have a national museum for Standing Bear. There is no reason. So as we grow Nebraska, we should make sure that in 10 years, you do get a congressional or a legislative seat back. So I think we will make sure to do that. However, we are tasked today, and we are tasked with this committee to follow the Constitution of one vote by one person. And not following the Constitution historically has not worked out for my community and your community, Senator Brewer. So I think we will make sure that we will follow the Constitution and be cognitive of how do we create better staffing needs, even if it is putting a budget to allow senators to have offices outside of our capital. We should look at all that to make sure we are more community involved. But I do think we have to follow the Constitution. I do think we have to follow the numbers. But I also think because of this redistricting, because of traveling to Western Nebraska, particularly with you, I am more cognizant of the fact that we have to invest in Western Nebraska to help it grow.
Thank you. And I got to tell you, I wish we had more senators that would think out of their district. And you're the example that we should have more of, because by doing that, it's easier to figure out solutions when people will think across lines and say, hey, it's not their problem, it's our problem, and we got to figure out how to make it better next time around. So thank you.
I look for co-sponsoring that bill this year.
Thank you, Senator Brewer. Are there other questions from committee? I have one. How many people does your congressional map slice off in Sarpy County and drag them into two?
Roughly 60,000 people, but I am, according to the article in the World Herald today, it might be 59,000 minus 2, because I'm assuming Bacon is building a new house outside the district that I drew. So I had 60,000 even, but I'm a little short now.
And what's the population of Douglas County?
Douglas County, oh Lord, 584,526.
So the people in Sarpy County that would be in District 2 would be what percentage of District 2's population?
Roughly 10%.
Thank you. Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. I will be back. I am going to run to the courthouse, and I'll come right back.
And I have asked Senator Lathrop to fill in when I introduce the other guys, and other times when I'm gone, when Senator Wayne's not here.
Okay, well, next here, the introduction of Senator Lenahan's bills. She's got a number of maps that relate to the congressional, the legislative, Board of Regents, School Board, and Public Service Commission. Oh, and the Supreme Court. Pretty sure that's not the reason for the crowd, though.
I didn't realize. Can you guys come? Are these for the testifiers? Is that the situation? Okay, I'm sorry. I thought they were Senator Wayne's. Good morning, Senators. My name is Lou Ann Lenahan, Louannlinehan. I represent Legislative District 39, which is in the western part of Nebraska. Douglas County. I am not only, I'm getting older today. I hope it doesn't show up that much. First, I would like everyone to recognize this is a very difficult process. No one likes change. I don't care if you're 5 years old or if you're 65 years old, you do not like change. But due to population shifts, changes are necessary. No map is going to win the approval of all. But today, we welcome the public's input, and I will try and be brief in describing the 6 bills that I am introducing today. LB1, which is the congressional map, ensures minority voices are protected. Both the Black minority, majority, and Hispanic minority, majority legislative districts remain in Congressional District 2. LB1 follows clearly recognizable boundaries. It takes the northern part of Douglas County outside of 680 and north of Dodge and places it in the 1st District. I don't know anybody who lives in Omaha who doesn't use those 2 main thoroughfares as directions to how to get to their home. It is necessary to split counties to ensure we keep the 1 person, 1 vote principle and keep the deviation at 0%. I realize we're not to concern ourselves with partisanship, but since my office had received over 100 calls to save the blue dot, I'm going to address it this morning. LB1 proposal for the 2nd District does not eliminate a blue dot, nor does it guarantee it. The blue dot depends more on the presidential candidates than it does the congressional map. Congressman Bacon has proved that. LB1 does not, as it has been described, split Douglas County in half. Doing that, you could, if we were going to do that, and if it was partisan, I think most of the people on the committee and several in here to testify today know that split would be down somewhere between 90th Street and 132nd Street. What it does do is place Ponca Hills, Old Town Elkhorn, Valley, and Waterloo in the 1st District. It also keeps Sarpy County whole. Douglas County has 584,626 people. 441,014 remain in District 2, slightly over 75% of the population in Douglas County. In contrast, LB2 picks up, I believe it's 69,000, but I had a chance to check with staff this morning, so that's why I know. 69,000 people out of Sarpy County somewhere and grab them so Douglas County can stay whole. I don't understand the reasoning of that. I don't understand why every other county in the state can be split because we have to keep the 1 vote, 1 principle, 1 vote, 1 person principle, but yet somehow we can't split Douglas County in a very reasonable way. And I know there are many people who are going to disagree with me here today. But again, change is always on the horizon. And if we don't have some dramatic depression or recession, I can't really believe that Douglas County won't be over 1/3 of the state's population by the next census. So this is going to come unless hopefully maybe we have greater growth in Western Nebraska. Now, when it comes to legislative map, which is LB3, I do not agree with Senator Wayne that we should continue to do what the legislature has done in the past. I am absolutely opposed to it. We have some obligation, since we only have 1 house, to ensure that whoever represents the western half of Nebraska geographically has some ability to actually know who's in his district and has some ability to help those people. You are talking in Senator Brewer's district and LB3. If this map passed, he would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 counties. Am I correct?
Oh, I think it's,
14 counties and one district with, I can't even guess how many school districts for one senator. And we're supposed to find a way to make that bigger. We have other options, and that is the option LB3 represents. LB3 merges two districts, and yes, then takes one of them and puts them in Sarpy County. We have to put a new legislative district in somewhere in Sarpy County, I believe. We have 3 congressional districts, mine included. I am 50% over the population for a legislative district. Senator DeBoer is 32%, I think, and Senator Day is 30%. Those numbers add up to 40,000 people, which is right about where we need for a new legislative district. And that legislative district would go into Sarpy County. And the reason it goes into Sarpy County, because we talk about loss of population in the western part of the state continually, but we lack talking about the loss of population in legislative districts in Douglas County. District 31 is 2,000 people short. District 13 is 2.3% below. District 6 is 2.1% below. District 8 is 8.1% below the population it needs. So it's not, the population moved to Western and Douglas County. So if your district did not grow by the state average of 7.5%, your boundary lines need to change. 33 legislative districts are under the deviation rate. They are all not all west of Grand Island. Some of them are, we might even be setting in one of them. Yesterday, the ACL reminded us that this is about the voters and the people, not about us. I agree. It is not about our legislative district. We don't own our legislative districts. We serve, if we are lucky enough to get elected, because people elected us. The districts belong to the people. The other maps that are presented today, LB5 is the Public Service Commission map. LB6 is the Supreme Court map. LB7 is the State School Board, and LB8 is the University of Nebraska Board of Regents. There are concerns, I know, on the committee regarding the State School Board and the Board of Regents. I would welcome any comments on that today because it does currently cut Douglas County up 4 different ways. So with that, I'd ask for any questions.
Before we get to questions, I'd like to make a quick announcement. First of all, thank you for your introduction, Senator. We are pleased that we have a good turnout today. That's good to see people engaged in this process, and we're going to have an opportunity for input. Here's what we can't do today, though. Heckling, clapping, reacting to the testimony, that we don't want this to turn into that, okay? Where one side screams and then the other side has to be louder, and then it turns into, a football game or something. This is a hearing. If you would hold your reaction, your applause, your disappointment, whatever it might be, let the testifiers testify because they're educating the committee. Finally, if you have a cell phone, make sure it's in the silent mode so that it's not ringing in the middle of someone's testimony. With that, Senator, any questions for Senator Lenahan from the panel? Okay, I see none. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
You did a nice job there.
So we would welcome testifiers to come forward. The way, because so many people, we've got 2 tables. So we can have 2 people up here and then move toward the front. So once you testify, don't sit in the front row, and others who want to testify, move forward. That'll move this along.
Do you want to talk about a sign-in sheet? So if they don't get a chance to testify,
I did, but I can do it again.
you might, because I don't see how we ever get through everybody. And
Okay, the sign-in sheets, could we maybe have 2 tables with sign-in sheets? Where are the sign-in sheets? They're in the back. So there are, if you want to, again, if you want to sign in your position, there are sign-in sheets in the back. You can put your name down, state your position, and it will be, maybe I didn't make this clear enough, it will be part of the public record. So if you're here and 1 or 2 or 5 people have said what you're going to say, you can just sign in and it will also go in the public record. Hey, good morning.
Morning.
And you all see the light system right here, because I am going to be very tough on that today.
Okay, Bill,
You
you
go.
or me? You or me?
Please.
Okay. William Forsey, William Forsee, and I'm here to testify in favor of Senator Wayne's proposal. In 2008, they moved Bellevue out of CD2 into CD1. What happened that is they were hoping to, preserve a winner take all as far as the elections. They were very upset that I was the one that gave the electoral vote to Obama, and they didn't want to see that happen again. So what they do, they move my section of Bellevue out into CD1, where I have Congressman Fortenberry. Okay, I don't have a lot in common with Lincoln. I have a lot in common with Omaha and the business community in Omaha. They thought they preserved the electoral vote for the Republican Party. Well, last year something happened. Biden won the electoral vote, and they almost lost their mind again. So they were trying to figure a way to make sure that will never happen. What we're looking at, I have a question for the Republicans on the committee. When have you turned
We don't, unless it's rhetorical.
It's
You
sort
don't
of
get to ask.
rhetorical. Yeah, it's rhetorical, definitely. What we're looking at is, when have they turned against business? How much money and millions of dollars are brought into CD2 when this district is a competitive district? If it is no longer competitive, and there's no chance of ever becoming a blue dot again, do you think the National Republican Party would spend money here? Do you think the National Democratic Party would spend money in Omaha? No, there'd be no reason to. So I'm curious as why would they want to give up a financial blessing, I call it, to Omaha and to the state of Nebraska as far as new tax revenues coming in? So I'm confused as to why they're opposed to what I think would be a blessing for the Chamber of Commerce, saying, bring the money into Omaha, we want it. Bring the money into Nebraska, we want it. We don't want to just give it away, because we want to, make sure that the blue dot never happens again. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Mine feels far away. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Alicia Shelton, Alisha, Shelton, Shelton. I am here to speak as an opponent to LB1 and a proponent to LB2. I took some time to review our state constitution and Article 3, Section 5, that talks about redistricting and trying to understand what it means when it says county lines should be followed when practicable. So today in my testimony, I'm going to speak about how I feel that LB1 is not practicable. Earlier, Senator Lenahan spoke about it being necessary to have LB1 and necessary to divide Douglas County to have one person, one vote. Well, that means equal representation. And I want to tell you why your map is not equal representation, because it separates the culture of the county. What is the culture of a county? It's our shared experiences. Our core is our shared experiences. I grew up in Douglas County. I attended school in LD1. Lived in LD1, that's Senator McKinney's district. I was bused to LD20, that's Senator Lindstrom, I think, and then, or Senator McAllister. And then I also was bused to District 6, which is Senator Michaela Kavanaugh's district. And so I also had the pleasure of driving to Thurston County for 4 years. I found 4 different routes to get all the way up there, and I learned something. I learned that what makes people bond and what connects people is what happens in their county. So the shared experiences that we have are the school systems, the libraries, the postal service, it is the courthouse, it is the healthcare system, the hospital systems, it is the police departments. What you are doing in your bill, it separates that. I also heard you mention that the communities of color are still in your proposal, your map of LB1. Well, I'm not. And if you look at the communities of color that have recently grown in the past 10 years, specifically Irvington, they are completely removed and put into LD1. And so, for example, in my neighborhood, I have the champ, Bud Crawford. He's in LD1. What does that do? What shared experiences do we have with Saunders County? I'm proud to be in Douglas County, and I'm coming to ask you to consider to keep it whole as it has been for 130 years. And change is great. Change is always on the horizon, but it is you have a moral obligation to listen to the will of the people, and the will of the people, you can hear that today, hopefully in this room. And so I'm asking you to.
Thank you. Are there questions in the committee? Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Good morning, Honorable.
Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Hal Daub, Haldaub. I'm a resident of Douglas County, and I'm pleased to be here to spend a few minutes with you on this decennial redistricting obligation, which the legislature will shoulder, I'm sure, at the end of the day quite well. And I want to thank each and every one of you for all the time and effort you spend on this very complex issue, and for these public hearings, which give the transparency that some have complained about. I appreciate that. Perry Mason was an interesting young lawyer a long time ago, and I used to watch him as a kid. And he used to tell his able assistant, Della Street, that there were three things that he liked about jury trials. That your position was not always right, but it was more right. That your position was not perfect, but near perfect, and that it was not totally fair, but fair. And that's the balancing that the committee will be going through at this point in time. And it's really about politics. Let's be honest about it. And it's about two-party politics in Nebraska. Iowa doesn't have this problem, but we have a blue dot. And this is about saving the blue dot from some point of view, or by advantage or disadvantage from either side. Each wants to take advantage and work through a decision. And it's a political consideration, just as it was in 1979 and 1980, when I had the chance to go through this same experience at that time before running for Congress in 1981. Your obligation is to shed about 47,000 noses. It's a population shift. It's quite dramatic and quite abnormal to 3 counties, as you know, on the eastern end of the state. It's not evenly distributed, so it makes it difficult. And courts are uniform across the country, local and federal courts, that they don't follow county boundaries and specifically previously dotted lines on maps. They look at the contiguity of, or the compactness of a district historically, but the regular lines we see and historically think about have never been sacrosanct, as they are not in either one of the proposals the committee is advancing to the legislature. And I remind you of a case called Day versus Nelson, and the constitutional provision that says that you have to be practicable or practical in your assessments, which I think you've been. So if the Lenahan proposal, which I think is a good start in the right direction, is not workable, then I propose a solution. And critics who have criticisms ought to propose a solution. My option would be to go back kind of to what the old second district used to look like. and configure it with Cass County, all of Sarpy, split Douglas, which has to happen under any circumstances, as it did 10 years ago, and then Washington County. And you have contiguity, you have the river, you have communities of interest, you have compatibility, and all those things would be necessary to manage, save the addition of Saunders County in the previous map. And I want to point out one last thing quickly. For legislative map redistricting, I call to the committee's attention a very simple matrix. In 1916, Biden won 7 of the legislative districts in the Omaha area, and Trump won 13. If you look at the new boundaries that are being drawn in 1920, Biden would win 11 and Trump would win 9. That's
Yes.
pretty fair.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's pretty fair.
Thank you. There may be questions from the committee, but I'm going to make this announcement. I think if we have people clapping or talking, we're going to remove you from the room. Are there any questions?
We also need to respect that light system. This is the worst job. I chair a committee. I did till 11 o'clock last night. Senator Lenahan is chairing this committee. We have a lot of chairs at this table. The worst job we have as legislators is enforcing the light. If you see that thing come on, just stop, please, because what you're doing is robbing from the people that are waiting in line that time. So thank you.
I can't think to what to put in front of your name.
Just
Regent, Honorable
good old hell. will do.
Congressman.
Good old hell would do.
Could you just repeat the lines again and what you, because I know you and I both know for over 30 or 40 years, as long as we've known each other, that those lines have changed every 10 years. So, and that it's always kind of grabbing something else to keep Douglas County whole. So what are you suggesting?
It's clear from both the major political party maps in front of the committee and the legislature that county boundaries are no longer as sacrosanct as they used to be. And over the last 30 years, that's been true. And you look at the Public Service Commissioner Regents maps, clearly crossing congressional boundaries, county boundaries, all sorts of things. But what you can't accuse either one of these two proposals as gerrymandering or ignoring ethnicity and composition or contiguity. And I think that in both cases, the maps have struggled with the legislative 134 mandate to try to achieve that goal. And I think that's been done by and large. It's important, however, to understand that the moving of 47,000 noses is a very difficult problem. No one's going to be happy with where those lines fall, but they're going to have to fall across county boundaries. But I made the other point. The legislative piece of this redistricting for Omaha is really quite fair. If you're looking at the blue dot, which I think might be, if this doesn't go the right way, be more in peril than the proponents of the Wayne map think, need to look at how balanced the legislative Omaha area districts have in your proposal, Senator Lenahan. It's amazingly well balanced and quite fair.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Good morning.
Good morning. Rebecca Schnabel, Schnabel. The proposed maps have lines drawn that are favorable to Republicans or Democrats or particular candidates. As a nonpartisan voter, that speaks to me loudly. It says that the process, as it is playing out today, is not about the greater good for all Nebraskans voting or for the greater good of future Nebraska policymaking. In this important decision, do only Nebraskans matter who are in a red camp or a blue camp? If so, the process is discounting a growing number of Nebraskan voters. More than 270,000 voters in Nebraska are registered as nonpartisan. These voters are all 3 congressional districts, and they're all in all 49 legislative districts. If you are in support of one of the maps that is guided by red or blue, please consider the following statements and the resulting question. The total nonpartisan voter registration closely matches the population of Lincoln. Would it be okay to discount Lincoln in the redistricting process? On a broader view, the total nonpartisan voter registration closely matches the combined population of Bellevue, Grand Island, Kearney, Fremont, Hastings, Norfolk, Columbus, North Platte, and La Vista. Would anyone consider discounting all of these locations in the mapping process? No one should be discounted. That is why making it red and blue is so wrong. The word nonpartisan applies to a type of voter registration, but it also applies to the 49 state senators who are elected to nonpartisan seats in the Nebraska unicameral. I ask you as fellow elected and your fellow elected senators to take leadership in taking party politics out of redistricting, remembering your responsibility to serve as a nonpartisan body, working for all citizens in Nebraska without a focus on political affiliation. Political gerrymandering is not acceptable in Nebraska. Do not discount any voter registration because it does not match your own. Put aside personal desire for political party gain. Let votes pick the winners of the candidates, not mapping. Voters want fair mapping based on census data, not on voter registration status. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Perfect timing. Questions? Thank you.
Thank
Morning.
you. My name is Preston Love Jr., PrestonLove. I say greetings to you senators on this committee. As an elder historian and adjunct professor of the Jim Crow area, I know that gerrymandering was used to restrict Black votes in response to the positive impact of the 15th Amendment. As a veteran and participant of the civil rights movement, gerrymandering was also used to restrict Black votes in response to the positive impact of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. Currently, I am both an advocate and an activist for my community and other communities of color and poverty. Yesterday evening, over 15 nonpartisan organizations organized a town hall meeting to educate and dialogue with our communities about the process and details of the Nebraska redistricting. I report to you, there was a resounding preference in that meeting and the groups that were represented for the Wayne legislative map redistricting, in all due respect. I said, I add to that preference my own wisdom. This redistricting process has the danger of rebirthing gerrymandering once again in Nebraska, attempting to restrict the vote of Blacks and people of color, whether intentional or unintentional. Gerrymandering stands shoulder to shoulder with the other voter restrictions, such as poll tax, literacy tests, and voter ID, splitting the lines between the Black vote in North Omaha and the brown vote in South Omaha is gerrymandering. These unique and long-term close-knit communities uniquely have nourished their culture, their community, their commerce, and voting commonality for generations. We have the right to request that this illustrious committee would focus on the technical aspects of mapping for equal representation instead of the techniques for partisan agendas. That's not reasonable. May I add that any dilution of the historical voting continuity in the 2nd Congressional District that would change the ability to split the electoral vote is a veiled move to return to winner take all. My time is up, but I ultimately would hope that you would vote for democracy, not demagoguery.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Love. Any questions from the committee? Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Carol Beatty, Carolbeaty. I am a lifelong Nebraskan, born and raised in Lincoln, residing in Omaha and Douglas County since 1991. I served children in the Omaha community as a school principal in the Millard Public Schools for 16 years before my retirement. I have chosen to live in a mixed-race neighborhood in northeast Omaha for the past 20 years. Since I became eligible to vote, I have voted in every election, local, state, and national. I believe in the right to vote and the need for every Nebraskan to vote and for that vote to count. In Douglas County, I have found a community of interest. I live near others who share cultural, social, economic, and geographic concerns. I know that my vote has counted and made a difference in a number of recent elections. I fear that the redistricting proposal by Senator Lenahan will divide Douglas County, and I may lose part of my community of interest. I oppose that map as it divides Douglas County, which directly contradicts guidelines set up in Legislative Resolution 134, referred to by many previous speakers, regarding the splitting of municipalities and counties. This map also divides the Black community in Omaha with the moving of the neighborhoods in the Irvington area to the 1st Congressional District. The maps presented by Senator Wayne do not divide Douglas County or Omaha. We need a map that keeps Douglas County whole. I question how these maps were created and by whom. I understand that the League of Women Voters have submitted maps based on the guidelines approved in the spring by the legislature. Were those maps even considered? I believe there has not been transparency in the creation of the maps and that the public was excluded. I believe that the congressional and legislative maps created by Lenahan are gerrymandered as they break up moderate Republican areas as well as Douglas County. As the legislature considers this process, we must keep bias out and come up with fair maps. As a supporter of civil rights and a believer that Black Lives Matter, I am an advocate for racial justice and equity. I am concerned about fair representation for all racial minorities and disadvantaged groups and implore the committee and the legislature to prevent any division of those groups in the redistricting plan for Congress and for legislative districts. I am proud to live and vote in a community that has elected very effective African-American and Latinx state senators and other office holders in recent years. Let's make sure that the redistricting process is fair and equitable for all minorities and that talented people of color have opportunities to represent their communities. I'm also concerned that these hearings were all during the daytime,
Thank you.
which precludes working citizens from participating in person.
Thank you. Are there questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Blood.
I'm sorry, I don't actually have a question for you, Madam Chair. Are all three lights working? Because I'm just seeing the red light come on over and over again.
Yeah, they,
Oh, it does.
it
I,
does.
I saw the yellow light.
Okay, I think I'm at a weird angle. I just want to make sure that people are being given warnings. Thank you.
And I didn't see the red one, so I apologize.
But Senator Blood has brought something to my attention. If people who were here early should go before people who are outside standing in line. So what we said early, maybe you weren't in here, that if you should get a seat in the front and then let people who are here early move up. I'm just trying to be fair. If they were here, I don't know, at 8:30 this morning, they should get to go first. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Carmen Bundy.
Please, quiet. Sorry. Go ahead.
CarmenBunde. Thank you to this committee for the opportunity for the public to speak on these maps. I'm here to support the Wayne map and oppose the Lenahan map. I actually live in Senator Lenahan's district. She stood on my front porch when she first ran, and I actually voted for her because I am not a straight ticket voter. I vote according to individuals. I don't know if you'll get my vote again, but you did
I'm
get
not
it
running
once.
again.
Okay.
Never mind.
So I am not very well versed as my first hearing. There's congressional level maps and there's legislative level maps. I will say that for my district, the Lenahan map would move my vote into Saunders County, rural areas with fields. I am very familiar with Wahoo because my sister-in-law lived there. So I have driven to Wahoo. I've driven that 30-mile exactly minute door to door from my house to her house across the street from the high school in Wahoo. We do not have the same school district or legislative concerns. And so it does not make sense for us to be lumped together. I am a proud Omahan. My address is Omaha. I live in West Omaha. Omaha metro area is where I live, play, worship, and work, both north and south of Dodge and I-680. Omahans have city and county interests that are aligned and should not be broke off and placed with Lincoln. On another level, I am familiar with many micro communities in the Omaha metro area because I'm a realtor and heavily focus on Douglas and Sarpy counties. The Wayne Plan aligns with many areas that naturally fit within a legislative district because the general public buying and selling homes considers these areas similar. For example, the Benson boundaries, the Exarban and Midtown boundaries, Gretna and Springfield, D39 encapsulates most of Elkhorn Public Schools where my kids went to school. These boundaries make more natural and practical sense. On the the Lenahan plan, District 24 grabs Ceresco and Wahoo, jumps across the river and again across Highway 50 to try to grab all of Gretna, which is growing significantly, and parts of Millard and growing Papillion to try to bury some of those votes. It does not make natural sense. She does it where she splits a neighborhood. The country club is split, Shadow Ridge. So both a neighborhood and a commercial golf course are split in two. And the huge Hillsborough neighborhood, which would be split between 10 and 18 would be split. That makes no sense at all to have different legislative districts splitting neighborhoods, let alone boundaries. When you look at this, the Wayne Plan, you can see that it very naturally follows main arteries. And that is an important aspect to not dividing neighborhoods and to keeping micro communities together that have similar interests. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the committee? Senator Blood.
Thank you, Chairwoman Lenahan. Thank you for coming today. I do have a quick question for you since you said you were a realtor. As a realtor, how do you feel about the fact that one of the maps cuts through several SIDs?
Honestly, I was looking at this late at night. I didn't notice that it cut between
Okay,
the
so one of the maps cuts
SIDs.
through SIDs. So the concern for me would be, say a SID only has 500 people, then they're going to have two different legislators that they must contact when they have legislative issues. And we all know SIDs are run by boards here in Nebraska.
Yes.
And they're also exclusively in Nebraska.
Yes.
So as a realtor, would you think that might be problematic?
Just as I feel it's problematic to divide a neighborhood and one particular, which is a country club, I'm not a member, it's near me, but to split up a private and I would argue commercial aspect, who are they going to go to if their whole country club is divided? Same as an SID. I live in an SID. I've actually never lived in city limits of Omaha. I've always lived in an SID. And it is individuals from those areas serving on those boards. It creates great confusion to have to figure out which legislative district are we in. Across the street is a different one than mine. It really makes more sense to keep entire neighborhoods as much as possible intact. The Wayne Plan, from what I was able to see, does more of that than the Lenahan Plan. And I would ask you to honor the historical cores of these micro communities as well as the larger communities. I am in Omaha and I would like to stay within Congressional District 2.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning, members of this redistricting committee, and thanks for allowing the opportunity to speak to you this morning. As a former teacher.
Your name and?
Barb Wagner, W-A-G-N-E-R. As a former teacher, I can certainly appreciate the hours that you have been putting in because many of my days were 10-hour days and it was day and night. So thanks for doing all the work that you are doing. What I'm about to share, I'm guessing you have heard many versions of, but I want to clearly state my belief that neither Democrats nor Republicans should carve out political districts based on election success for their respective parties. Resolution 134 Districts under legislation are to be designed without favoring a political party and without diminishing the strength of any minority population. Prior to this opening meeting, I called several of your offices to see if you had any early thoughts about redistricting maps. Senator Lenahan, your office stated that as chair of this committee, you were going to work hard to create maps without anything being gerrymandered. 2 days after I talked to your office, your map was released to the public, and it cut Douglas County in half. Senator, did you really believe that was a fair and equitable map without being gerrymandered? How can you justify that Douglas County is a community of interest with Saunders County? It's not. And furthermore, how can you justify cutting across 16 counties when the Wayne map only cuts across 8 and leaves Douglas County intact? Is your thinking the same as when you stated that there really was no benefit to allow the public input in the legislature's early redistricting sessions of August 30th and September 7th? And since that redistricting process is rushed this year for several reasons, I would think that you would value the thoughts of people who are going to be affected by this process. To both parties on this committee, it appears to the public that this is political gamesmanship, that there's gerrymandering being done without being said. This committee is to accomplish an important task of fair representation of one person, one vote. It is important that government work represents all the people of the state in a fair and just manner. If you can't accomplish that task as an individual, in my mind, it would be okay for you to step off this committee and have the chair appoint somebody else. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Joel Wentworth, Joel Wentworth. I am a native Omahan, though I am the son of immigrants. Both of my parents migrated to Omaha from Franklin County, Nebraska in the middle of the century. And my own strong feeling is that we in Nebraska love our counties. You need look no farther back than the massive change of our license plate pattern to learn that only the 3 metropolitan counties which were compelled to adopt the ABC 1, 2, 3 pattern chose to do so. All the other 90 counties elected to keep their identifying county numbers, even if it was at the expense of their budgets. The guidelines adopted by this legislature in May, and I'm not certain if that's the LB 134 that others have referred to, and I imagine some of you on this committee voted for those guidelines or had a hand in shaping them. And they do say that we'll follow county lines wherever practical. And just as important, when feasible, district boundary lines shall coincide with the boundaries of cities and villages. We have a necessity to adopt a change because the population is growing asymmetrically, far more heavily in Sarpy and Douglas counties and Lancaster as well. But we do not have to split counties any more than absolutely necessary for feasibility. I can see common ground between myself and former Congressman Dobb and former Regent and all those other titles, that we could look elsewhere to achieve the balance between congressional districts. It would cause me no qualm, probably less qualm than those I'm about to mention, to seek a northern solution that we need not divide Douglas County or Sarpy County by composing a new second district out of Douglas, Dodge, Washington, Burt, and as if necessary, Thurston counties, bringing it right up to the roughly 650,000 required for a congressional district. This would put Sarpy in entirely with Lancaster and the surrounding southeastern counties and achieve a balance between the districts. We do have a strong sense of community that has to be preserved. And I know that change is inevitable, but no one is proposing dividing Lincoln along O Street or Norfolk along Johnny Carson Boulevard or Albion or Gordon along the highways like Highway 10 runs right through Franklin. These aren't being considered, and they would be, I'm certain, revolting. We'll multiply that revolt of the people of Gordon, Albion, and Lincoln by a huge factor, and this would be the pain being offered by the Lenahan plan to the citizens of Omaha and Douglas County.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Good, questions? Sir, I'm sorry. Senator Geist has a question.
Go ahead.
Senator Geist.
Thank you, and I understand your pushback. I just want to bring to your attention that currently Sarpy County is divided,
Yes, ma'am.
and so I guess my point would be is that if it's currently okay to divide Sarpy County, why would it not be okay to divide Douglas?
Because most of us learned in kindergarten and elementary school, Senator, that two wrongs don't make a right. Though the 2010.
I will remove clapping. I will have you removed.
Thank you.
The 2010
No.
lines did commit a seemingly necessary evil to the people of Sarpy County. and
Thank
it's
you.
been much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Nora Sandine. I'm a former school teacher, so it's capital N-O-R-A, capital S-A-N-D-I-N-E. I am here to encourage you to pass LB1 and LB3. My testimony will center on LB1. But first, I'd like to thank you all for all of your time and effort you've put into this endeavor. You've worked to come up with a fair and logical redistricting plan for 2021. You've spent many hours, and I know you're getting overtime for this, probably a penny an hour. Anyway, I thank you all. Keeping Offutt Air Force Base and Bellevue within District 2 is a common sense approach to the redistricting plan. Offutt and Bellevue are closely tied together and are a critical part of Sarpy County. They both contribute a great deal to the entire community aspect of our county. Bellevue, Papillion, La Vista, Gretna, and Springfield all benefit from the Offutt Air Force Base economically and culturally. Our military personnel like these counties so much, they continue to live here when they retire, and many of them return to Sarpy County in spite of the taxes. Bellevue and Offutt are closely tied to each other, and they feel a part of this community and don't want to be separated from the rest of the county. And the rest of the county doesn't want to be detached from Bellevue and Offutt. We are one county in spirit, and we want to be one county in our congressional district. I urge you not to break up Sarpy County. We are a united county working together to make Nebraska as a whole a great place to live. Keep Sarpy together. We don't want to be the rest of it anymore. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Is this
Yes.
good? Okay, all right. Good morning, members of the Redistricting Committee. My name is Samantha Chavez, first name Samantha, last name Chav as in Victor, EZ. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm here speaking in a neutral capacity on behalf of Nonpartisan Nebraska as a board member. A little about me, I'm a constituent of Legislative District 12. I've always had a passion for advocacy and civic engagement. I'm the kind of person who was excited to turn 18 because that meant that I was able to register to vote and make my voice heard for the people and issues that I care about. After realizing that there was a lot for me to learn about state and local government, I made sure that I would do as much research as possible on the issues and people that were on my ballot. As a former legislative staffer and observant constituent, I can say that some of the best policy occurs when senators work together. In the last year, I became involved with Nonpartisan Nebraska because I believe that the best form of government is one of genuine collaboration and strong nonpartisanship. A strong nonpartisan redistricting process can create equal and fair districts that benefit Nebraskans. The Nebraska Legislature should consider and value the diverse communities of voters in current districts. In a previous session, Senator Wayne commented on the diversity of his district. He commented on the urban and rural areas in his district, race, socioeconomic status, and other demographics. As for the district that I live in, Millard, Southwest Omaha, and Ralston provide one example of a small city and part of a larger city being well represented by one senator. Public officials should represent the diverse voices of Nebraskans. The members of Nonpartisan Nebraska pride themselves on listening to everyone's input and working together. We do this because we believe in maintaining the nonpartisan process of the Nebraska Legislature. Nonpartisanship is something that Nebraska should strive for and be proud of. We're the only state in the entire country that has a committed structure to a nonpartisan unicameral legislature. 10 years matter. The effect of your decisions now will last longer than the term of any of the senators in this body. The purpose of redistricting should be to draw lines and update districts according to the population projected by the census, rather than political interest or party affiliation. A lack of equitable and nonpartisan redistricting can alienate voters. Whether they're registered as Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, or nonpartisan, every voter must be represented by their government. Thank you for your time. And just one thing that I wanted to add is, as a former staffer, I am glad that you mentioned the Legislative Research Office. They do incredible work, and so I just wanted to thank them for all of their hard work. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for being here. Are there questions on committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Steve Jordan. I'm a retired journalist and a registered nonpartisan and a resident of Legislative District 8. Megan Hunt's my senator. I live within the boundaries of Congressional District 2, and by the way, my birthday's tomorrow. So, and I would remain in District 2 with either of the two plans before the legislature. But 2022 will be 50 years ago since my wife and I joined a group of other people, and we formed a new church in Northwest Omaha. Although we still live on 48th Street, this new church is west of Interstate 680 and north of Dodge Street. And that's the area that would be removed from District 2 under LB1. We have much in common with the other members of the church, as well as many other people who live in that part of Omaha. In fact, my piano teacher lives over there. In other words, we have common interests or a community of interests, including interest in our federal government. It makes sense that we be represented by the same people in Congress. I do not have as many interests in common with people from Caresco and Malmo and Wahoo and other communities in Saunders County that would become part of District 2. Members of our church who live nearby, north of Dodge and west of 680, likewise have less in common with counties they would join under District 1 in the proposed plan. It's important to me that the people in Northwest Omaha, who are my friends, my fellow churchgoers, and my piano teacher, are represented by the same person in Congress. I also noticed as I was waiting that LB1 raises the possibility, although it might be slight. Nebraska's always had a member in Congress from greater Nebraska, and one from Omaha, one from Lincoln, roughly. LB1 would raise the possibility of having two from Omaha. And I don't know if that's something that people worry about. Anyway, thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jordan. Are there questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. Good morning.
My name is Dave Richardson, DAVERICHARDSON. I'm a lifetime resident of the city of Omaha, Douglas County. I'm a retired school teacher. I taught in 2 different public school districts in the city of Omaha. I can begin with a true confession. I have committed voter fraud. Before you have me removed from the premises here, I hasten to add I was 8 years old, and my accomplice was my beloved late Aunt Marge. On Election Day in November of 1952, I accompanied my aunt to the polling place. She lifted me up so I could see the little tray there in the ballot booth, the little metal shelf, and I marked an X next to Adlai Stevenson's name, knowing full well that was my aunt's preference. I was ecstatic, partly because I had acted out of a sacred duty. I was fortunate that my parents had instilled in me the idea that voting was a sacred duty. I still believe in that sacred duty. It is too important to be manipulated by partisan shenanigans. I urge the company to accept in principle the proposal presented by Senator Wayne. It is considerably fairer to the voters of CD2. The arc of justice bends toward communities and their long-standing sense of shared values and shared responsibilities. These bonds have been developed and shared over a long time, as has been alluded to earlier. Do not de facto disenfranchise many of the residents of Douglas County by severing them from this district. Newer areas are often more amorphous and in kind of a gestational period of political identity. I am pretty sure I am the only 8-year-old who ever voted for Adlai Stevenson 70 years ago. I'm unrepentant because it left me with a lasting respect and pride in our system. I would hate to see it tainted by callous disregard for justice and fairness in our electoral system. That relatively harmless act is still a constant reminder to me the importance of a fair electoral system. I'm a proud citizen of CD2.
Thank you. Are there questions from the committee? Thank you very much for being here. Good morning.
Good morning. My name's Christy Fabe, Kristie Pfabe. I'm a math professor in Nebraska, and I've been studying gerrymandering and redistricting for the last 4 years. And I am here to use math to make 3 main points. My first point is that Senator Lenahan's legislative map unfairly favors rural districts. Number 2, Wayne's maps are more compact than Lenahan's. Finally, number 3, Douglas County should not be split because of disparate population densities between Douglas County and Saunders County. As to my first point, when the shapefiles became available on the legislative's webpage, I decided to make interactive maps so that I could explore the maps and get comfortable with what I was seeing. So I made interactive maps. My website is there for you if you would like to look at it. I think it's very useful. And I made it so that when you clicked on districts, you could pull up information about them. So for example, with the legislative districts, you can see what the district number is, the compactness score, and also the percent deviation from ideal population. So I started clicking on the districts, and I noticed something interesting. When I was clicking on the rural districts for the Lenahan legislative map, it seemed like a lot of the deviations were negative, meaning that you had populations below the ideal population. Rather, when I was clicking on the urban ones, I noticed that they were above, meaning over the ideal population. When I did the same thing for the Wayne map, I didn't see any pattern. So I decided to explore this more, and I made new maps that color-coded the districts by if they were below the ideal population or above. Below is blue, above is red. And this is what I saw. Again, this is on my website, and I have a copy for Senator Lenahan and one for Senator Lathrop. When you look at Senator Lenahan's map, the rural counties are all blue. Most of them are blue, meaning they are below the ideal population. Rather, the urban populations are mostly red, which is above. And when I did this first, I thought it kind of looked like I was trying to make a partisan map, but accidentally switched the colors. So when I looked at the Wayne map, I saw absolutely no pattern. So that gave me some evidence. What I did from there, I made this graph, and that's in the testimony that I'm giving to each of you, and I would ask you to look at this graph because it is the most compelling evidence that the Lenahan legislative map favors rural districts. So this map, on the vertical axis, you'll see percent deviation from ideal population. On the horizontal axis—
Thank you. Are there questions from the committee? Yes, Senator Moorfield.
I'd like to know more about the horizontal
Thank you. The horizontal axis, what it records is population density measured in persons per square mile. So if you take a very urban district, people are living close together and your persons per square mile will be larger. So on this axis, the 6,000, that corresponds to a very urban district. On the other hand, on the left, that corresponds to rural districts. So what is significant about this map is that every dot is a district. The Lenahan's districts are the pink reddish. I also have trend lines here. And trend lines, what they do is they capture the general shape of the dots. What you see with the Lenahan trend line is it's going up as you go left to right. Here's what that tells us. That tells us that urban districts are more likely to have deviations above the population, the ideal, and rural below, whereas the wane is flat, it's horizontal, and that means there's no relationship. What's significant about this, it might not seem like a big deal to have these deviations, but if you take a state that has 30 people in it, simple example, 30 people, and you're going to have 2 districts, and you should have 15 in each, but rather you have 10 and 20, each person in that 10-member district has twice the voting power of each person in the 20-member. And so having populations below the ideal population, it gives those voters more voting power. And that is in direct violation of LR 134, which says you cannot preference a group.
Okay, thank you for the additional context. I'll probably reach out to you after to make sure other people have time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Moorfield. Are there other questions from the committee? Senator Breeze.
Thank you, Chair Lenahan. Thank you for your testimony here today. Great stuff. But just so we're clear here, the deviations we're talking about are all within 5% plus, 5% minus, correct?
Right.
Okay.
They should be used for the right reasons. They should be used to not break up a town. They shouldn't be used to preference a group.
And fair to say that deviations can also be used to protect, preserve cores of existing districts.
That's right.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question.
Oh,
I
yes.
think Senator Wayne's map is there on the table, right?
Oh,
Lamont,
yeah.
Could you help her find that one? Lamont, just could you
Yeah,
help her find?
Oh, this is a current one.
LB4.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, Lamont, please. I have trouble finding them, so.
Okay. All right, I see it.
Okay, so if you look at Dual County, Garden County, let's go way out to almost to the Wyoming border.
Right.
District 47. Senator Wayne's deviation on that map is, can you see it?
I do.
What is it?
A negative 4.12.
And then if we go east,
Right.
still western Nebraska, but east of there, District
Right.
42, it's a what?
Negative 4.3.
And then if you go to 36, which is still in western Nebraska, it is,
Where's 36?
right?
Oh,
east.
negative 2.92.
And if you go to southeast corner of the state, where
I see the point you're trying to make. The problem is that you need to look at the overall picture, not.
I'm making the point that I can go on here, as you know I can, I assume. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other districts on Senator Wayne's map in the rural areas that
Right.
are under the deviation.
But I can make the point that the trend line gives
I
the
know, you've made that
global.
point. You've made that point.
Yes, it gives the global
But
explanation.
Senator Wayne has at least 8 districts in rural Nebraska under the deviation.
Right. And what
Thank
what I wasn't saying is that all of Senator Wayne's rural districts are above or below. That's not what I was saying. I was saying it's a statistical analysis that tells a trend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Other
your time.
questions from the committee? Thank you. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. I'm Mary Jane Trumper, Trumper, and I own a home in Saunders County. And it concerns me listening to a lot of the testimony talking about Douglas County residents don't have much in common with the rural districts and vice versa. And that's just not true. As a resident of Saunders County, we're in the metropolitan service area of Douglas County, as are all of the surrounding counties. The surrounding counties, if you go looking in the morning during rush hour traffic or in the afternoons during rush hour traffic, there's a lot of input and output going into the surrounding counties. So we are all interrelated. So I would want to point that out. I think that I know that Douglas County would only benefit from having 2 congressional representatives rather than 1. In these bedroom communities or rural communities surrounding Douglas County, we are all integrated. It concerns me too that, we do have a unicameral. And it makes it, if we had a bicameral where we also had representatives based on geography, be happy to talk about doing that. But if that was, then we would have fair representation of the rural and the urban. But I think it's even more imperative that since we do have a unicameral, that we have to be mindful of our rural residents, and we cannot have Douglas County versus everybody else. That's not good for the state. It's not good for Douglas County, and it's certainly not good for the region. So I would like to put that in. And as far as Saunders County being part of CD2, I'm all for that. If I walked east from my house, I'd be 2 miles, I'd be in Gretna. And so we have a lot more in common, I think, than what we think. So I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to say.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Are there questions from the committee? Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Peter Gadzinski, G as in good, A, D as in David, Z as in zebra, I-N-S-K-I. It's the first time I've ever had to spell it that way, so you understand. I'm here today to speak strongly in favor of Senator Wayne's delineation of Congressional District 2.
Sorry. We'll get extra seconds here. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
to paraphrase Will Rogers, I'm not speaking on behalf of any organized political party. I'm a Democrat. Okay. I feel a little bit like Charlie Brown in the Peanuts strip. Every time Charlie goes to kick the football, Lucy pulls it away. Okay. For Lucy, read Sarpy County voters. Only once in the past decade have I been able to kick that ball. All right. And I have a prepared statement. Gerrymandering denies the will of Douglas County voters in congressional races. Douglas County voters chose the Democratic candidate over the Republican in every District 2 congressional race since 2012, following the gerrymandering of district boundaries 10 years ago. By an average of 3.4 percentage points, Douglas County voters chose Ewing over Terry in 2012, Ashford over Terry in 2014, Ashford over Bacon in 2016, and Eastman over Bacon in both 2018 and 2020. Despite this clear express preference on the part of Douglas County voters for Democratic congressional representation, only in 2014 was the Democratic candidate elected to Congress. In every election year since 2010, Western Sarpy County voters swung the district as a whole into the Republican column by an average 2.6 percentage points, overturning a Democratic victory and replacing it with a Republican one. District 2 congressional election results do not reflect the will of the majority of voters in Douglas County, the most populous county in the state, and one that accounts for almost 1 out of every 3 Nebraskans. One of these things is not like the other. It's time to remove Western Sarpy County from District 2.
Thank you. Are there questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Angie Phillips. It's ANGIEPHILIPS. I'm the co-founder of the Nebraska Legislative Study Group. We're a grassroots organization with a quickly growing membership of over 1,000 residents across 70 Nebraskan towns in at least 23 legislative districts. I'm here today to represent our group in support of fair, nonpartisan legislation, which we believe is best represented by Senator Wayne's maps. Many of my fellow Omaha organizers are here today, and we have seen several members show up to testify in support of Senator Wayne's maps as well as send in written testimony. But what I'd like to briefly discuss, one of the reasons we are seeing so much support for Senator Wayne's map within our membership that I don't believe has been discussed, or at least not enough. A significant portion of our membership believes that Senator Lenahan's maps are gerrymandering or working the lines to fit a Republican agenda. There are major concerns about Senator Jen Day's district, which she had just won by narrow margins, concerns about Douglas County being divided, and how redistricting will impact our public schools and our communities. Yesterday's interactions at the public hearings in Lincoln between senators was reassuring. It sounds as though the committee is ready to work together in a nonpartisan manner. However, with that being so, we still know that perceptions do matter, particularly in today's political atmosphere. One of the constant narratives of Nebraska my entire life has been this rural and urban divide. I would like to share with you what we hear from some of our rural membership. One of the most common things we hear is that our members' rural representatives do not care about their concerns because they are not the majority because our membership is not the majority in their district or in this state. We hear stories about how they reach out to urban senators because they feel represented by them more than they do their own senators. We spend hours trying to convince people to contact their senators anyway. The truth is, sometimes the only representation some of our members have are senators outside of their district. I say this to point out that losing a rural senator doesn't inherently mean losing rural representation. Redistricting is about fair representation based on population while preserving communities. One person, one vote. Please move forward in a nonpartisan manner and ensure that every Nebraskan has fair representation. Keep Douglas County together and make this process as transparent as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you hardworking public servants. I am Frances Mendenhall, Frances, Frances, Mendenhall, Mendenhall, and I live at 3715 Hamilton. I appreciate everybody who is willing to keep their masks on while they're speaking, so I'm going to do the same. But if you want to know what I look like, there we go. I want to speak for the interest group that I would call urban people. Nebraska is increasingly becoming an urban state. I think we deserve a chance at one representative in the U.S. Congress who speaks for urban people. And so I would ask that you draw the boundary for CD2 to be as compact in population as possible. And I believe that Senator Wayne's map comes pretty close to that. I mean, I'm sure there's room for improvement, but I like it. So anyway, thanks for your hard work, and go Big Red.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the committee? See none. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is William Hay, Hay. I'm a resident of Omaha. So as not to bore the committee, I won't repeat many of the points that have already been stated, other than to say I do think it begs credulity after the Sarpy County switch we had in the last redistricting to believe that this is not a partisan bill. I'm speaking to the number to LB1. And that I'm concerned about the breaking up the urban population and the minority groups into different districts. I want to spend the rest of my time discussing how this hearing is being held. I am concerned, as the earlier speaker was, and I understand there are travel issues for some of the legislators, but having hearings in the middle of the work week does cut out a very sizable percentage of the population from being able to participate. I would also like to say, as a family physician and a clinical associate professor of medicine, that I'm concerned about the environment we have here. I'm surprised that the committee expressed amazement at the size of the crowd. I'm surprised it wasn't bigger. I think the choice of the venue is problematic in that there is no way we can have social distancing in this room. I also am concerned that despite having one of the nation's leading centers on COVID within 2 miles of this hearing, the state government continues to ignore their cries to try and prevent spread of COVID. Props to the gentleman who cleans the table, but that's not the major way someone would catch this. It's air transmitted, and there's no social distancing, and the state continually does not require masking, which would be scientifically justified. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. Good morning.
Morning.
We're going to break for lunch. Can we go to 12:30? At 12:30, we will break for 30 minutes for lunch and come back at 1 o'clock.
So go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry.
You're
And that's not on his time.
All right. My name is Cole Christensen.
Please, quiet.
My name is Cole Christensen. I am born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska, and have spent the past week trying to learn as much as I can about redistricting and gerrymandering, and have found it to be very confusing and opaque as far as a process is concerned. And I assume that there is some intention in that to make it more challenging for people to be involved with the way these processes go. So I appreciate that there is a hearing and a chance for people to speak their mind on things. As Alicia Shelton, who spoke, one of the first people to testify, mentioned, that Senator Lenahan's proposal, LB1, would be separating the culture of the county. And from what I've researched, redistricting is not supposed to be drawn on political affiliation or race. I would argue that what is not political as an act is a question that could be drawn there. Everything has a political angle to it. But I have to agree that if we cannot base it on political affiliation or race, we need to look at something like political culture or climate or population density. I know that after the last national election that there were shirts being sold that stated, "I'm not from Nebraska, I'm from Congressional District 2. I know that because I own one of them. I think there is a distinct difference in the culture here in Douglas County specifically, and I can't help but notice the intent behind, as Preston Love mentioned, splitting the Black vote of North Omaha and the brown vote of largely Hispanic South Omaha and putting them in 2 different districts. This seems like a pretty brazen attempt to, as it's called, cracking, separate different voting groups and disempower them by diluting their voting base into different districts. And again, I'm not an expert. I'm somebody who's been trying to learn this, but you can smell it that when there's something off. And Senator Lenahan, there's something off with your proposal. That's all I've got to say. I do also note that you did not ask Alicia Shelton for a follow-up question. You did begin asking at Hal Dobb and let him go on for a very long time. And during people who have spoken in opposition to your plan, you have either given a very condescending smirk or looked at your phone. And I think that there's something to be stated about your willingness to hear out people who genuinely have concerns with your proposal. I know it's probably hard to take criticism, but that is what your job is in this position. So I would consider being more open and receptive to the voices of your constituents. And I am in support of Justin Wayne's proposal and against yours. That's all I've got.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Kristen Dupree. That's Kristen Dupree. And I live in Omaha, District 4. I am opposed to Lenahan's congressional and legislative maps. but I will focus my time on the legislative proposal. And I will warn you, I am an actuary by training, so I can't help myself from getting into the weeds. First of all, I am disappointed to see that the number of representatives for Douglas, Lancaster, and Sarpy County is still 1 to 2 less than what the census data supports. I am also extremely bothered by the suggestion from multiple senators to game the deviations in order to fulfill their strategy of retaining an outsized rural influence in the legislature. Now, I'll share 2 observations from Chairwoman Lenahan's proposed legislative boundaries in Douglas County. So the first is regarding the boundary, and what you're holding is regarding the second. So I'll hurry get through this one to get there. The first is regarding the boundary between LD9 and LD20. LD9 currently comprises neighborhoods east of 72nd all the way down to Midtown. Lenahan's proposal would move the boundary west up to a broken line in between 84th and 78th Street, splitting off blocks of neighborhoods from LD20 into LD9. Moving this line all conveniently moves a current elected official into a new district, District 9, which happens to not be up for election in 2020. Aside from this apparently politically driven motivation, I think the boundary between LD20 and LD9 should remain 72nd Street. So the second I wanted to point out was illustrated by the printout that you have. So we're looking at a line between LD4 and LD18. And you'll probably notice the jagged edges that unnecessarily carve up a neighborhood right away. But I will point out something else very troubling to me. The residence of a recent city council candidate is moved out of LD4 into LD18. The line is drawn literally down their street. Let me repeat that, down their street. I do not think this was an accident nor coincidence. Accident nor coincidence. So that's the micro issues that I see with these maps. But I also wanted to point out the political bias I see on a macro level. Using composite election results from 2016, 2020, the current makeup of the legislative districts is 32 lean Republican, 9 lean Democratic, and 8 are competitive. In Lenahan's map, 2 of those competitive districts, 1 in Omaha and 1 in Lincoln, moves from competitive to leans Republican. The obvious political motivation behind moving district boundaries to exclude specific community leaders and shift the overall makeup of the electorate has undermined any faith I had in the committee members that put together or support Lenahan's maps to live up to the nonpartisan requirement stated in LR 134, as well as the nonpartisan tradition in our unicameral. For this and the reasons I discussed, I would urge the committee to use Senator Wayne's maps and negotiate amendments from there.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Thank you very much for being here. Good morning.
Hello, my name is Drew Pauly, DREWPAULY. I'm a constituent, obviously, or else I wouldn't be here. And I am concerned that Senator Lenahan's map is intentionally designed to split the black vote. I think the GOP and obviously Nebraska is a red state. You did not like the fact that in the last election, we flipped that script and we were able to get Biden in. I think that this is intentional voter suppression. I think you know that. I just don't think you care. I'm just going to talk about like how I feel about this, the ethics, the morality, and not the logistics, because I'm not a politician. I'm not that guy. And I think some of the other people really laid it out plain and simple earlier. We know that this is supposed to be a democracy. We know that's Greek, demos, and Kratia. So therefore, the people and the power. It's supposed to be in the power of the people. You are not supposed to take away the power of the people that elected you to the position, to the chair that you're sitting in, for the overtime that you are making right now in this very moment. I'm frustrated that this is even a conversation on your behalf. I'm in full support of Justin Wayne on this. Honestly, I had written out a really long thing. I'm coming off of a 12-hour overnight shift, and I did not get a chance to rest because I wanted to be here. I'm an openly gay Black man living in District 2, and the idea that my vote at the end of the day is going to be split and it's not going to really matter bothers me. It bothers me because independent of my political views, as an elected official, you should care about everybody's voice being heard and that being heard equitably. I agree 100% with what Alicia Shelton said, 100% with what Preston Love said, and those that come before me. Whatever, I'm going to skip around. Whatever the outcome of this committee and the map and everything, it should be focused on equity, representation, and justice should be first. When I say equity in the terms of something being equitable, I don't mean equal. I mean equitable. The idea of making something, bringing something to where it should be. So if I started out 2 steps ahead and my friend started out 1 step behind, it's not about both of us getting an extra step. It's about that person getting an extra step to be where we're at. That's equity. That's when you start to see that real power of the people come into play. I think too often we get stuck in this idea of politics being this back and forth part. Let's work together to make it so that it's not a political thing to do all this stuff back and forth. Anyways, I also, before the light turns red, just want to say, first of all, Senator Moorfield, I really think you should run for president and governor. You are my favorite. I'm just saying. Also, I really think that a part of this is also designed to empower Ricketts, who I think is a detriment to all Nebraskans. He doesn't report the COVID stats. He's harming LGBTQIA youth by opposing the comprehensive sex ed. He opposes the truth about the racist foundations of this country.
Wrap up for us, please.
What?
We've been a little stricter. It's been like, stop.
Oh, okay. I just got here, so I was trying. But
Can I finish the last 2? Okay, well, critical race theory. So.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry. Oh, there's a question.
There's a question, though.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
First, Senator Lenahan is not the only person who drew this map.
Okay.
So for all of you, I would like to defend
It's fine.
my chair and say all of the assumptions about what you think she's done, it's been a group effort, okay?
It's okay.
So it's not. The other is that,
Question. We need a question.
yes, do you know that the blue dot would still be a blue dot the way that Senator Lenahan's congressional map is drawn?
From my understanding, based off of the information that I've been able to read in my research leading up to today, and in conjunction with the information that was shared by other people today, while that may be said on paper, we all know that that's not the reality. So no, I do not believe that your statement is accurate or true.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Luann.
No, it's fine. Good morning.
Good morning.
Are we still morning? Yes.
Yes, officially. Good morning,
This
everyone.
will be, what did I say, 12:30? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, my name is Roberta Adams, Roberta Adams. I live in Papillion. I support LB1, Senator Lenahan's map, because I live in Sarpy County and I don't want our county to be split since we are a community of interest. Her map of District 2 is predominantly suburban and rural communities who share common interests and lifestyles of fierce loyalty to our smaller communities. We make it a point to shop local and yet enjoy the opportunities of the greater metro area. As a resident of Papillion, I have much more in common with people in Bellevue, La Vista, Ralston, and Gretna than I do with Omahans, since these communities are similar to mine and have the same concerns. I oppose LB2, Senator Wayne's map, because it splits my community in two along Highway 370, which is 5 minutes from my home. Most of my shopping is done on both sides of Highway 370, and I hire local vendors from both sides of the highway. I consider the entire area my neighborhood. I share concerns with all of Sarpy County and want to keep the same congressional representation with the rest of my county, which strengthens what I have to say to my representative. I also do not want to be separated from Bellevue and Offutt Air Force Base, since my Papillion neighborhood has always been home to a great number of Air Force officers and enlisted soldiers. My support for the military at the base comes down to support for my very own neighbors and their concerns. I know redistricting is complicated and hard work.
but Senator Wayne's map shows the most Democrat precincts in Sarpy County and increases Democrat representation by 4 to 5 percentage points. Senator Lenahan's map is fairer, even though its shape is more irregular, because it only increases Republican representation by 0.5% percentage point. I don't think that Nebraska needs to use Senator Wayne's map that is more gerrymandered than Senator Lenahan's map is. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Are there questions from the committee? Senator Blood?
Thank you, Chairwoman Lenahan. And Mrs. Adams, thank you for coming today. So I have a couple questions since I'm the only person on here from Sarpy County, and my staff is watching and taking notes. So can you tell me about the current congressional map and why you're unhappy with that? The one from 2011 that we're trying to replace.
I don't like the cutoff with other people from Sarpy County.
Okay, so you feel
And
that
I
we've gotten
definitely
poor
am against-
representation under CD. Are you in CD1 or CD2?
I'm in CD2.
Because it was gerrymandered quite well last time. So, okay, so right now you're in CD2. And you're saying that you don't like the new map because it's divided, correct? Am I hearing you correctly?
I don't want Sarpy County divided.
Okay. Can you tell me what Papillion has in common demographically with Bellevue? And again, I'm trying to get stuff on the record. I'm not trying to put you in an awkward position, but you did say that you share so much in common. I'm curious what that is.
I happen to worship in Bellevue. And so that's one of the things that I do in Bellevue. And I also am involved in a lot of civic activities in Bellevue, even though I'm in Papillion. I see us as sister communities.
Okay, so you don't participate in worship or any civic involvement in Douglas County at all?
I'm a Sarpy County resident, but I am involved in civic things in Douglas also.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Senator Blood. Are there other questions from the committee? Seeing none? Good morning.
Good morning, Senators.
Or afternoon. Close.
Good.
Good
My
noon
name.
time.
My name is Steve Watson. I live 1605 South 189th Street in Senator Lenahan's district. I am here to speak as neutral. I have reviewed the legislative rule 134, which states that the congressional districts shall be drawn as nearly equal as practical, no less than 0.5%. LB1 and LB2 have drawn the maps so accurately that there's only 2 or 1 person difference between LB1 and LB2. Where are the maps that draw the state legislative districts as equal as possible? Your legislative resolution said that the legislative districts shall be drawn as nearly equal in population as may be, not as practical, but as may be. So I compared LB3 and LB4 in a similar fashion that the mathematician did. And the districts that are between a negative 2% under and 2% over are 18 in LB3. In LB4, they're 19. So what that means that only 37% of the state legislative districts are within 2% of the ideal population. In LB3, there are 31 districts that are anywhere between 2 and 5% out of alignment. So they're either 2% low or up to 5% high. That is 63% in LB3 and only 61% in LB4. I understand how difficult it is to draw these maps because there's pre-existing political interests and other ideas of protecting rural interests or urban interests and so forth. But for the benefit of the people of the state of Nebraska, we should adopt an idea to make the legislative districts as equal as possible. Even you have to cross over county lines, because that's the only way that the people are going to have more trust in the system.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Senator Moorfield.
Thank you for being here. I know that you sent us some data before a lot of the process started. Can you send us some of your analysis to the committee? Email it?
Yes, I will do that. I just went through the maps drawn by caliper and I just took the deviation off. And my suggestion would be publish the maps by caliber that show what the 49 districts would look like if they were all within 1% equal.
Okay.
And then that would give a starting point for the rest of the community. And then we would get away from gerrymandering and we would have more trust in government because it's more equal.
Thank you. And if you could follow up with the summary of what you just stated to the committee, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Moorfield. Are there other questions from the committee? Seeing none, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Carol Gotch, CarolGottschh. I've communicated with everyone on this committee at one time, and now today I'm face to face with you. I appreciate that. I'm here in opposition of the Lenahan proposed maps. I live in the Field Club area here in Omaha. We are in the central part of Omaha, Douglas County, and not so much Nebraska. I'll give you that. But the redrawing of the proposed maps by Chairwoman Lenahan will take me from District 9 to District 5. I believe in one person, one vote. I voted for John Kavanaugh in District 9. I did not vote for District 5, Mike McDonald. I'm losing my voice and I plead to you that that kind of thing doesn't happen. The other thing I'd like to talk about, I'm a small town country girl, born on a farm near Storm Lake, Iowa. My family is from Mount Pleasant, Iowa. I live in Omaha and I believe my Mount Pleasant ancestors think I live in western Nebraska. In Field Club, we help one another. We value one another. We plant trees together. We take care of our veterans. We had a farm produce, leftover food. We have 5 families in Field Club schools that we donate. We take that food to them. Somebody told me you live in Field Club. That's a country club. Look at me. I don't wear high heels. I don't wear a top hat. I value the same thing that you value in the rural district. That's my roots. I was born on a farm. We value the same things. One of those is one person, one vote. I've heard unicameral, Republican, Democrat. We got to stop talking like that. We value the same things. Put the maps in place according to that. I know I'm passionate. We have to stick to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Are there questions on committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Tim Rouse, Timrouse. If you go back in history far enough, I was twice elected to the Omaha Board of Education and once to the Omaha City Council and was president of the City Council. And I'd like to approach this topic a little differently than some of the other people. I think you've gotten some wonderful information from a number of those who've done statistical analyses. Both the Omaha Board of Education and the Omaha City Council's jurisdictions pass across 680 and Dodge Street. So in essence, the Lenahan proposal would require those two government bodies to deal with two different congressmen on similar issues. I think that's inconvenient. Correspondingly, if you divide the way the Lenahan proposal, or LB1, since it's not just her, results in the congressman who now represents the second largest city, Lincoln, is now going to be required to represent Lincoln and Omaha both, which dilutes Lincoln's influence in the legislative process. Now, if it's important not to split Sarpy County, which, has been split since forever, and, I believe the natural affinity with Old Bellevue and Omaha is a strong one, but if it's important for Sarpy County to be whole, then let District 2 go north rather than south. Now, what about Congressman Bacon living far, far away? Well, we know the law allows him to live far, far away and still represent District 2. And in fact, Congressman Bacon, or any congressman for District 2, is spending most of their time living in Washington, D.C., and that's where they should be living. And so I don't think we need to make that a stop to making Sarpy County pure and separate from District 2. But I'd end by just saying, think about what the governmental units have to do to work with one another. And this split of the Omaha or the Douglas County is going to make it much more difficult, both for the congressman for District 2 and the congressman from District 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me see if does anybody have questions? I just for the record, not to, but you said Sarpy County was split forever. It's my birthday today, so forever's a long time.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. It's only been 20 years, right?
Sarpy County has grown, so it's taken on its own life, and maybe it needs to be contiguous. I don't fight that idea. I think that's not a bad idea.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good morning or good afternoon.
Good morning. My name is Margie Mosher, Margie Mosier, and I'm here in support of LB1. First of all, I want to thank you very much, Senator Lenahan and Senator Wayne, and your committee members, that you guys have done a remarkable job. It's a formidable task, and I think all of you have done a great job. You don't have any ulterior motives except to keep Nebraska citizens in their legislative districts. I am a Bellevue resident, and I can answer your question because that's basically my first point. I live in very East Bellevue. Remember for the river, right? All of our addresses, I'm at 303. And so when I found out that Fortenberry was my congressman, I was like, what? How did this happen? I have lived with that split county thing, and I don't like it. Bellevue is sort of landlocked, and as we have grown, we've moved west. We haven't moved north. That's already settled. That's already there. That's our kids, our families have all gone west. And so our churches, our shopping, the corridor on 370 Giles Road and Cornhusker Road, that's our community. And that's where we do our shopping, we do our everything. And Bible studies, I would never have said this 40 years ago, but Papillion and Bellevue have kind of grown into one community. Whistler Vista has been added recently too. And I think that when you talk about not separating something, I think it makes more sense to separate Douglas County when you're splitting 600,000 people, and not separating Sarpy County when you're taking 60 or 70,000 out of 190,000 and putting them in a different district. I think that's, that's my point.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there questions from the committee? Senator Blood.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Just real briefly, I think no community wants to ever be split. So the question that I would have is, why is it okay to split Omaha or Douglas County and not Sarpy? And it's not a trick question. I just
No, it's
truly,
not. No, I
yeah.
don't think it's a trick question because I've asked myself that same thing. And I think Senator Geist alluded to that earlier, like why split one or the other? I think that Omaha is a much more diverse, Douglas County is much more diverse than Sarpy County.
In what
started-
way? In what, when you say diversity, what is your definition of diversity?
In terms of urban, rural, probably. There's, yeah, in terms of urban, rural. And I guess one of my questions, as I listened to everybody here say Omaha shouldn't be split, I thought, well, wait, why should we be split and not Omaha? I mean, it's not fair either way.
Right.
It's
And
not good for either.
no matter
one.
what we do, there's going to be
And
somebody
I think mine
unhappy.
goes down to simple math. The simple math is you're splitting 600,000 people. It doesn't seem like it would be as disruptive when you take, which is like kind of your area of Sarpy County. When you take that and put it into Omaha, that is more disruptive to the continuous, like I said, 370 Giles Road, Cornhusker Road corridor. You're taking part of that out and putting it into Omaha, and that we have common interests, common recreational areas, the things that we might go to a congressman for, I think are more similar there in Sarpy County.
So you feel that the way that it was gerrymandered with the 2011 map, that it has been disruptive?
Yes, I feel like it has been. I felt like it has been disruptive.
Because
And
you've
I
not
felt-
gotten good representation from your,
I love Congressman Fortenberry.
oh, okay.
He's
All
been
right.
great. It just seems as though, and he's been attentive and whatever. That's not a problem with our congressman, any of our congressmen in Nebraska. It's just that as we combine together as a group, as a unit, you guys keep talking about community. This is our community, Sarpy County. It's not as like some people are talking about, well, I live in Northeast Omaha, or I live in Southeast Omaha, or I live in this part of Omaha. Sarpy County doesn't feel like that anymore.
Fair enough.
A
Thank you.
few years ago, Bellevue was Bellevue. Bellevue was
Thank
It's
you, Mrs.
grown.
Mosher.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Blood. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Karen Boehm, Karen Boehm. And I'm here today to speak because apparently yelling at my TV and my newspaper is not doing any good. So, and I have some questions. I'd like to ask why there was no public input while these maps were being drawn up. This is a nonpartisan legislature. Why are the only maps we're seeing pretty much Republican and Democrat instead of nonpartisan? And why are there only two? I do understand that the League of Women Voters had someone who drew a very nonpartisan and even map, and I haven't heard one single thing about that. So I do have some questions about that. I kind of understand where the people are talking about splitting Sarpy County, although traditionally Bellevue was established. And when we moved here 26 years ago, there was very little in Papillion and La Vista and Springfield, and that was a lot of farmland. So they were kind of different, and it didn't make as much of a difference at the time that Sarpy was split because they are, because they were very different. However, I do think Senator Wayne's proposal is very, very fair. We should not split Douglas County. I live west of 680 and a mile north of Dodge, and I have nothing in common with most of the western part, most of the other counties, Saunders or Wahoo. I don't even have that much in common with Lincoln. We're Omaha, and District 2 should not be split. I have friends around the country who last fall, they were writing going, "Go Omaha, yay Blue Dot." They were very, very proud of us. And I think that Douglas County should absolutely not be split. And I think that the LB number 1 was very, very partisan for the the law 134 that says you should not split county to suddenly have 16 counties split, and especially not Omaha. I realize that one district out in northwest Nebraska is huge. Maybe you've got a few people who own airplanes who could help you fly to other areas of your district so you could get there sooner than driving. But, you know, we're not talking geography, we're talking people. And the people should pick their representatives. The representatives should not pick the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there questions from the committee? Senator Wayne.
I just want to make a quick statement. The League of Women Voters was drawn. We did have conversations with multiple colleagues. And if you look at my Congressional 2 map, it almost is identical to the limit. We go east, they go west into La Vista a little farther.
Okay.
And then the district on Congressional District 1 was simply about how the League of Women Voters had theirs going straight to the south. And there was communities of interest that have historically been in Congressional District 1. So the committee did take that into account when we talked about it. So just for everybody who knows that.
Thank you. There was not a lot of public
No.
hearing on that, but, and I do appreciate that you looked at the League of Women Voters. I have not seen it. I only knew that it was out there and that it was very, and yours very much seemed to follow what they had proposed. So thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Hi, my name's Fred Robertson. I think no one's really talked about that very much, but I think that is a pretty important piece of information. In addition to the fact that it always has been one part of a district, that whole county, Douglas County is growing. Why would you say, let's split a county that is growing? I mean, that seems really counterintuitive to me. In fact, Senator Lenahan, in your testimony, you stated, in 10 years, Douglas County may very well have the population in order to be a congressional district by itself if trends continue. I heard that. That means that your proposal now is to temporarily split Douglas County. And then 10 years later, when it reaches, because of trends, that 1/3 population, now we have to redo the district and put it back together. That doesn't seem very logical to me. It seems to me that we're better with looking at a map that is a bit more consistent with how that county has been a core for a long period of time. In fact, since the state's inception. I also think some of the information presented on the deviations is pretty important. I did a little bit of work on that this morning. At 5:30, I got up and I started to check those different maps. Senator Wayne's map, Senator Lenahan's map. Going back and forth, I didn't have a very good program. I just had my head and a pen and writing things down, but I saw that in the rural districts, the minus deviation was pretty consistent in Senator Lenahan's map. Minus meaning that people would be overrepresented, one person, one vote. And Senator Wayne's map, it was not that consistent. In other words, there were some that were over, there were some that were under. So it was actually fairly distributed. That's important information. I really appreciated the previous speaker, I can't recall her name, that brought up that piece of analysis. So I think when we're looking at this, we're going to probably, I think you all know this probably. You all work hard. I respect everybody on this committee. I mean, I know people work
I'm
hard.
sorry.
You're going to have to compromise. Wayne's a better starting point.
Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. Okay. We'll have time for, unless we have a lot of questions, we'll have time for 3 more testifiers. And I'm not, you're doing a very good job, it seems, of like organizing yourselves to take turns. So can after lunch, we're only going to break for 30 minutes. Would you all come back to exactly the same place you are now? Okay.
We better.
All right.
Good afternoon. My name is Allison Wagner, ALLYSON WAGNER. Happy birthday, Senator Lenahan. I am here today to speak in opposition of your congressional district map. I speak today on my own behalf and not on behalf of my employer or any organization. However, I am a director at a large nonprofit community theater in Omaha, Nebraska. And I wanted to give some perspective from the arts sector, which I think would be a little bit unique. Omaha prides itself on having a really vibrant theater and arts community. And splitting Omaha into two separate congressional districts would be detrimental to our arts sector. COVID-19 forced nearly all theater and arts organizations in Omaha to close their doors for months, some for over a year. Many of these organizations are nonprofits with modest operating budgets that exist only to serve the Omaha community. These closures would have put them out of business, but during the pandemic, Omaha's local theaters and venues and arts organizations banded together for months via campaigns, via letter writing, campaigns like Save Our Stages and the Day of Action and the Red Light Project to advocate for our congressional representative to pass legislation that would provide relief for our local arts economy. And because of our united efforts, legislation like the CARES Act and the Shuttered Venues Operating Grants were passed in Congress. This legislation is the reason that some organizations in Omaha pulled through. Omaha doesn't have a central geographic arts hub in our city. We don't have a Broadway or a theater and arts district that we can point to as our hub. Omaha itself is our hub, from El Museo Latino to the south, to the Union for Contemporary Art, to the brand new Benson Theater. Omaha is our hub. We exist in one city as a local industry with a common shared interest. And to divide our city's arts sector and further dilute our voice by combining us with rural populations outside of our city would be detrimental to our industry's ability to advocate for ourselves to our elected leaders. The populations that make up a congressional district should have similar interests. Omaha should remain whole and undivided as one congressional district. Senator Wayne's map is logical and fair. It's a good starting point. Its boundaries uphold a fair democratic process for the people of Nebraska. I encourage the Redistricting Committee and all state senators to work across the aisles to advocate for boundaries like Senator Wayne's that uphold a fair democratic process for the people of our state.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there questions from the committee? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Good morning.
Hi.
Afternoon, I'm sorry. Hi.
Hi, my name is Krista Bartholomew, KRISTABARTHOLOMEW. This is Amira. I grew up in Council Bluffs, but I've lived here in Omaha for about 10 years. I'm here to voice my support for Senator Wayne's map. One major goal of democracy should be to create an environment that encourages participation and reduces structural barriers to voting. We must create districts that ensure all voters in Nebraska are given an equal voice. Dividing Douglas County into two congressional districts creates an arbitrary boundary that divides communities and frankly is a blatant attempt to dilute the voices of Black voters in the state. I hear a lot in the news and in the legislature about brain drain in Nebraska. I hope that you can see how proposals like this Lenahan map contribute to young people leaving the state. This map sends a message that members of this legislature care more about carving out power for themselves than they do about representing all Nebraskans. A strong and healthy democracy is one in which voters feel there is someone representing them and the interests of their communities. Dividing Omaha into two congressional districts undermines this effort. Senator Wayne's map illustrates a fair picture of the urban-rural and racial makeup of this state and would ensure all Nebraskans have the representation we deserve. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Lee, Sarallee. I would like to speak to 2 points. I'm a resident of Sarpy County. I was upset about Sarpy County being divided. I used some of the redistricting software and very quickly realized that we cannot have both Douglas County and Sarpy County remain intact. The numbers just don't make it feasible. However, as much as I would love to see Sarpy County be able to be whole, I understand that it is more important to keep Douglas County together. I moved here from another state, and while I have since found many things to love about Nebraska, at the time, the only thing I was excited about was living in a purple state, where I would have the opportunity to contribute to an electoral vote no matter how I voted. As exciting as that is for me as an individual, I think that we need to be cognizant of the fact that what Nebraska does with Douglas County is actually of national interest. And I have a hard time believing that national voices will not try to be part of this conversation. Dividing Douglas County in any way is an obvious gerrymander. We would have to cut multiple counties in order to accomplish it. It divides the most populous city in the state down the center where the numbers do not demand it. And the variance is not as well done as it was in the LB2 map. And it is more similar to what we had before the 2011 redistricting. Also, the variance of the 0% listed today is different than how it was posted last Wednesday as negative 0.77 for District 1 and positive 0.67 for District 2. This is, according my best math, is a difference of about 9,000 people. Earlier this year, 538 produced some sample maps that showed what gerrymandering would look like for Nebraska, and one of them is the map in question that divides Omaha. At its core, gerrymandering Omaha is, as a purple state, means taking an electoral vote away from the people of our state. The second point I would like to discuss is the issue of rural versus urban unicameral districts. To my knowledge, there has not been a rural issue that our urban senators have not supported or rural ones on. However, on the issues of numbers, we need to be honest with ourselves. The majority of incarcerated individuals come from cities and are housed in prison areas found in rural areas. While they are unable to vote, the presence of their bodies counts towards the population numbers for those rural districts, which are already overfilled in rural districts and overfilled in urban districts. So in essence, we remove one vote from the urban areas and move its power to the rural areas without them being members of those communities. This is a population of roughly 5,500 people, which is larger than 36 of our 49 districts. While clearly the details of this discussion are outside the scope of this hearing, I bring it up simply to reinforce that rural voting districts are not underrepresented and not having their voices heard in the unicameral. That's not happening. They are actually erring on the side of being overrepresented, and our senators do care about what they need. I just ask that the fear of underrepresenting our rural population be eased so that we can give proper attention to our goal of one person, one vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And also while I'm here, I'd like to just thank Senator Blood. Her office checked on us several times during the early months of the pandemic, and that meant a lot to us. Thank you.
Are there questions from the committee? Okay, we're going to break for lunch. I'm sorry, but you'll be first in 30 minutes, okay?
It'd be short and sweet.
But we might have questions. I'm sorry. 30 minutes.